Chapter 5. "We're all different," John announced during his second small session of group therapy. "We have different backgrounds, different types and phases of illnesses, different likes and dislikes, different dreams. However, all of you have had a similar experience of a psychosis, a crisis that has led you here now." While John continued to talk, he observed the group. Donna was off discovering direction for her new life. Arnie was also absent due to a somatic delusion in which he firmly believed that something was rotten inside his body. The belief was so grand, no words could convince him otherwise. The rest of the group was at various stages of listening. Maxwell seemed on edge, eager to share comments when possible. Frank appeared attentive. Fawn wandered and hovered behind John, almost leaning into each word he shared. Cameron slouched and scowled in the corner. Thomas sat smirking. Mary Jean mumbled words to herself. In silence, Rebecca rocked and focused on her blanket. "Now, you're in recuperation or a state of dependence." John paused in hopes of obtaining more focused eye contact from the group, to no avail. "What are some needs you have while here?" "Therapy," Maxwell said. "Protection," Frank said. "Plus all our basic needs. Drugs. Lots of them." Cameron smiled, then began laughing maniacally. The laughter continued until he choked. He coughed, gagged, and clutched his stomach in pain. John turned to Frank. "Would you—" "No," Frank said. "He'll keep going," Maxwell explained. "He'll keep doing this. Last time, you did what he wanted, so he's doing it again." Cameron's struggling lungs and red face were disturbing. Not only did John feel played, another look at Frank and John knew his options were limited. He chose to ignore the crisis. "Rebecca, right now, what are your needs?" In a soothing manner, she caressed the blue fabric and kept her eyes focused on the small object. She wouldn't be answering. In order to fight against the sounds of gasping air, John turned around and faced Fawn, who still stood behind him. "Fawn, tell us your needs." "Need? Not so. I'm unreal. I'm made of stone, glass, bricks. Wired wrong. Precisely. No key. You won't find a key. Lost the key. Oops, gone now. Look at me. Closely. Nothing. Far away. See more." During Fawn's answer, Cameron's coughing had subsided. Instead, he lifted his hat slightly above his eyes and stared at Fawn. "You're messed up," he said. John resumed his discussion. "Along with having needs, we also have emotions. What are some emotions you felt as you've gone through your crises?" No one said anything. However, Fawn stopped fidgeting. Cameron pushed his hat further up his forehead. Mary Jean stopped mumbling. Everyone's eyes were on John. Everyone's except Rebecca's. John continued. "I want your insight." The group remained silent. "I can tell you my thoughts, but I want yours." "Thomas?" Penciltop's eyes lowered. His intense grin subsided. Finally, he looked up and said, "Confusion. I felt confusion." "Good, Thomas. What about you, Cameron?" "I don't know." He pulled his hat back down. "Have you felt anger?" John asked. "Course," Cameron said and looked at the ground. Fawn stepped closer. "What about you, Fawn?" Her large eyes looked directly at John. "Despair. Caught it. Trapped. Despair." "Good. Thank you. Anything else?" John supplied earnest glances at the others, but the remaining eyes looked down. "What about denial? Have any of you felt denial?" "Maxwell?" In a small tone, Maxwell said, "Definitely part of the process." "Good. Anything else?" The room became heavy with quietness. "Okay, great. Thanks to all of you who shared. Next week, we'll talk about the second event we encounter, the event when we decide it's time to change our situation and work on rebuilding our independence. But for the next half hour, we're going to focus on our crises and developing an understanding of our needs in order to recuperate." As the group session evolved, words were shared, along with experiences, tragedies, and struggles. As they retold their stories, John gained a deeper understanding of these individuals in his care. During this time, Rebecca was the only person who remained mute. At the close of group, John felt almost pleased. However, in a quest for perfection, he pulled Maxwell aside while everyone else exited for lunch. "I have a question for you," he said. "Tell me about Rebecca. Group times in the past, has she ever spoken up? Been involved?" Maxwell lifted his head and cleared his throat. "She doesn't want anyone interfering with her delusion. She won't allow someone to force her into seeing what's not there. But if she feels her baby's accepted, she'll talk." "Thanks, Maxwell. I know a lot. Is that because you've been here so long?" "No, I've just been to a lot of these places. My wife hopes this is the last." "Will it be?" "Of course. I know plenty about what's taking place. I don't need all the things you share. I've heard it before. I've read lots. I'm an expert. The problem is that others are less fortunate. They haven't experienced or known the things I know, but not everyone can expect to have the wisdom that's been shared with me." Delusions of grandeur. That was what Maxwell suffered from. Numerous problems had occurred when he had tried to force his influence on the government. These preparatory bombing attempts would send him to confinement. From there, his hospital records had shown a pattern. During inpatient status, he quickly made the required changes with a claim that he was a new man. However, shortly after he was released, he would avoid his medicine and resume his plot of how to control the regime. John studied this man. Finally, he said, "Maxwell, you might always be able to deceive others, but try not to deceive yourself." Maxwell looked at the ground, but his words were spoken with strength. "I'm not. I know myself well." Then he walked out. Summer solstice passed, and Clearcreek responded to the season's call for change. Gnats hung over the arched bridge, blue jays wandered through flower beds, and warmth clung to the air. For the first time since his arrival, John was finally eager to visit Rebecca. After much brainstorming, and many failed attempts and discouraging individual therapy sessions, he now had a plan. A place for her delusion baby in her treatment program. He found her at the window. "Looks like a beautiful day out there." He took his spot in the designated safe zone near her. As usual, the only response was the soft sounds of the lullaby. "If you ever want to take a walk out on the grounds, let me know. I'll watch over you, so sleep, little one, sleep on." "Would you like that?" John waited. Nothing. He took a long breath, then gradually exhaled. This plan had to work. "Rebecca, do you like to read?" Again, nothing. "Well, I had a hunch you might like this surprise. It's something special. A gift for your baby. I think you'll both like it." The singing stopped. Silence followed. John continued, "I've been waiting all day to come give it to you." Her body remained still. "Do you want to see it?" Her voice was sweet, youthful. "For the baby?" "Yes, for your baby. Is that okay?" She turned away from the window and looked directly at him. "What is it?" "Well," he headed over to the table, then pulled out a brown sack he'd tucked under his arm. "I brought a book for you to read to him. I thought you'd both enjoy it." She stayed near the window, but her eyes locked onto the sack. "Let me see." "How about we sit here?" He pointed at the chair across from him. Rebecca took a moment to look at the chair, then at him. Her eyes returned back to the bag on the table. Finally, she left the window. John, tormented with eagerness, slipped into his seat, holding his breath as she followed. Then he handed her the bag. She slid the book out of its covering. "The ugly duckling," she whispered. John couldn't help but grin. "It was one of my favorites." "I like this book," she still whispered. With her free hand, she flipped through the book's pages. When she reached the end, she looked down at her bundle and said, "I have a story for you." Her voice was tender, like a child's. John observed as she read the pages, sometimes pausing to look at the bundle, sometimes offering it a soft smile. Toward the end of the book, she lingered on a page, tracing the swan's image with her finger. When the story finished, she closed the book and studied the cover, her index finger traveling around the mistaken duck's outline. Finally, she handed the book back. "Thank you." No, it's yours," John said, presenting the book back to her. "Mine?" Her voice carried the smile. "Read it to your baby." She looked at the bundle. "Robert will like that." "Robert?" John nodded. "That's your baby's name?" "Yes." He smiled at her. "That's a nice name." "It is." She turned her smile to the bundle. "We liked the book." "I'm glad. How about I bring you more?" She glanced up at him, her green eyes studying him, the smile softer but still present. "Would you?" "Of course." Rebecca's lullaby played through John's mind as he reclined on his old sofa and paged through a recent copy of Psychology Today. His new apartment, only a few units down from Randy's, had all his essentials. Bed, couch, recliner, television, coffee table, bookshelf, books, and a few plants struggling to stay alive. Although the walls were bare, his belongings were in place. His immediate needs were all met. Without a knock, the front door opened. Just as John looked up, he heard Randy's voice. "Ready to go?" He partially rose from his reclined state. "Where?" Randy waved a hand across his bright Newport Beach tank top, then pointed at his striped swim trunks followed by his beloved Birkenstocks. "To the beach." John raised his eyebrows. "Right now?" "Of course right now." Randy spun around to look at the cordless phone cradled at its recharge station. The answering machine was next to it, its light still blinking. "Didn't you get my message?" John shrugged. "Guess not." "Why do you have this?" Randy sighed, then proceeded over to the answering machine. He hit play, and his recorded voice filled the apartment with beach plans. "So," he looked at John, "get ready. The rest of the gang will be here shortly." John slid back into the comforts of his sofa. "I never said I was going." "Why?" Randy approached and looked down at his friend. "What else is happening?" "Other stuff." John lifted up his magazine. Randy grabbed the magazine out of John's hand. "Surviving Schizophrenia." He tapped at the article, then tossed it back at John. "Come to the beach." John reopened it randomly to some article on the mood effects of lost sleep. He shook his head and pretended to read. "Today's not a good time." "It's 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon." "What do you mean it's not a good time?" The doorbell rang. "That's got to be Jeff and Tom. I told them to meet us here." John groaned. "I'm not going." Randy opened the door. "Come on in." Hey. Jeff nodded at John. "Been a while." His square body circled the room. "Nice place you got here." From the last time John had seen Jeff, the hair on top of his head had disappeared. Now it appeared his facial hair was trying to make up for the loss. "What's with the pants, John?" Tom asked, his string bean body folding toward John. "Get your shorts on, man. Let's get you playing some real sand volleyball." John sat up. "Not today, guys." Jeff and Tom both laughed. "Randy told us you might say that." "What?" John glanced at Randy. Randy shrugged. "You always said that. In college, after Lauren." John stood up, his feet wanting to pace, but his mind wanting peace again in his apartment. "This has nothing to do with that." "Then come hang with us," Randy said. "Hey, here come the babes." Tom headed toward the door. Jeff stretched his head to look out the window. "Lily's friend is H.O.T. "She's for John." Randy shot him a grin. "I'm not going." "I'll get your shorts," Randy said, walking down the hall. John threw the magazine to the ground and followed after his friend. "Randy, listen." The doorbell rang. Randy kept walking. Go get your door. This isn't about Lauren, he said, regretting his volume as he heard Tom answer the door and the bird chirp giggle follow. John turned around to face Lily. Hi, John. Her voice edged higher into another chirp. How are you? Great, Lily. Her fingers played with her ponytail. Beautiful idea you had. It's not mine, John said. That's okay, she grinned at him. Randy said you'd be modest. This is Angela. Hi. John turned to the vivid blonde encumbered with eyeshadow. Angela, with her long green fingernail, pointed at John's hand. I read palms. Maybe later I can do yours. Tell you how long your love life could be. She winked at him just as two other girls entered the apartment. Lily said their names, but all John heard was, I've got everything you need, John, as Randy returned back to the room, moving past him to hug Lily. Let's hit the beach. After she kissed him, Lily added, We're going to have fun. We're out of here. Tom threw his arm around one of the girls. I'm already hungry, Jeff announced. Randy, wait, John said. In the car, man. Tell me in the car. Everybody out. Jeff, lock the door behind you. But once outside, John tugged on Randy, breaking him away from the group. I'm not up for this. Look, Randy glanced to the group piling into Tom's van. You need to get over it. John felt his body stiffen. He didn't even think about her anymore. Hadn't for years, let alone speak her name. This is not about Lauren. No, it's about your mom. John gave him a puzzled look. What? She wants grandbabies, John. Randy gave John a somber look. He gestured at the van where Angela pointed at John with her green fingernail, then curled it toward herself. You're not funny. John returned Randy's somber look, only to cause Randy to break out into a grin. Come on. You used to eat, drink, and breathe academics. You're done with school now, so it's time for some fun. And your mom agrees with me. John raised his eyes at Randy. Why are we talking about my mom? Because when she called to get my address, she asked me to help you make friends. You're not serious. Of course I am. I told her I'd take care of you, and I always keep my word. So get in the car. I have things to do. Like what? Read about crazy people? Spend some time with healthy people for a change. Then you'll have something to compare your patients to. This is not a sane group. Even better. Observe all of us. Consider the afternoon field work. Randy pushed John forward. Now let's go.